I appreciate Dave being on the program with us. Dave, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for the kind words. Great to be on.
Dave, you and I have a lot in common. I got my master's of theology from American. My economics comes from Penn, but you have a PhD in economics, and we have a lot in common, and I'm sure we share a lot of the same views. And I really appreciate, I got a call last election from a GOP strategist in Virginia, in Richmond, who told me I was hurting Eric Cantor's numbers and I ought to be ashamed of myself, calling myself a conservative. I quickly respond that Eric Cantor ought to be ashamed of himself, calling himself a conservative. And if his numbers are going down, it's got nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with himself. He won that election, of course. And hopefully things are going to be a little different, because I'm hoping that you've got a different perspective about our economy, a different perspective about what needs to happen in Washington for your constituents in the state of Virginia. Tell me a little bit, give me a snapshot of your economic plan, what you would like to see for the country, and how you think you can impact that.
Right. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I mean, the obvious elephant in the room is the financial crisis right back in '07. And so you say, well, surely our leaders learned something after that disaster that brought our nation to its knees. And the evidence is overwhelming. They did not, right? The crooks up on Wall Street in some of the big banks, and I'm pro-business, right? So I'm just talking about the crooks.
Yeah,
they didn't go to jail. They're on Eric's Rolodex instead of going to jail, right? And on Obama's Rolodex as well. It's both sides of the aisle. And so our founders, if they were with us today, just a snapshot, the first thing they would do is what Madisonian logic dictates in the Constitution. That's separate powers at every turn. There's no way they could have anticipated a day like that we have today with these billions of dollars chasing all over the place and these guys enriching themselves at every turn. And so you just look at the big issues, right? I'm running on the Constitution, free markets, federalism, bringing the power of the federal government back down to the states where it belongs under the 10th Amendment. And so look at Obamacare. Big business is excluded from that somehow. Eric Cantor is in favor of amnesty as well. Amnesty is great for big business. They get cheap labor. But everyone in the 7th District gets cheap wages, right? And then the taxpayer has to pick up the tab if anything goes wrong there. And so just over and over and over, the smoking gun in the campaign that is related to the crisis, Eric Cantor backed the Stock Act was going through, which eliminated congressmen and their families from doing insider trading. The rest of us go to jail for that. Mm-hmm. One congressman blocked that so that and changed the language of the Stock Act so that spouses could still do insider trading. And guess who that was? Eric Cantor, right? Single-handedly, that's CNN reports, 2 times 60 Minutes reports. And so in a snapshot, the financial system is broken, started in housing with Fannie and Freddie making 2/3 of all subprime loans. The government sector backed, right? It took over the banking industry, and we wonder why things go wrong. And so that led to the financial crisis, and that leads to our current 0.1% economic growth the last quarter. And healthcare system is broke. The legal system is broke. The rule of law is broken. And so that's plenty of inspiration for me to get up and try to do something about it. So thanks for asking the question.
So, Dave, let me ask you this, and this is an important question for me and our listeners. I know it's important for – I worked in Washington for many years. I understand the culture down there. And what are you going to do to stay out of falling in to the the lobbyist, the continuing campaign? What are you going to do to protect the interest of your constituents that you are, I know right now, because you're running for Congress, you know and understand, I'm sure, since you're running on the Constitution, that you may get hired to be a representative of your constituents. What are you going to do to keep from turning your back on them like everybody else seems to do as soon as they get there for a year or two?
Yeah, well, I teach ethics and economics for the last 18 years, and ethics is, roughly putting the rules of the game down on paper ahead of time, right? So it's like playing a football game. You got to have the rules on paper ahead of time so you know who's cheating. And so you asked exactly the right question, right? How do you know I don't get tempted to do all the things that all the cronies are doing up there? And the answer is you put pledges down on paper ahead of time, right? So I'm running on term limits. I'm promised to put a bill in. I will term limit myself to 12 years. I'm running to put in a bill on a fair tax or a flat tax. I'm running on the promise to visit every county. I have 10 counties and cities in my district every month. And if I don't do that, get rid of me. My job is to represent you, not to represent cronies. And so I view my job as being a representative of the people. Right. And so that's the right question. And so I'm going to put those on paper, and if somebody gets to me and bribes me or lures me away with money or whatever, then it'll be clear that I've broken my word, and you should get rid of me immediately.
I get asked all the time about term limits, and I tell people the same thing all the time because people want term limits. I say, we've got term limits. It's called the Constitution. We have an opportunity. It's called a voting booth. We have term limits. The problem is we, the American people, have not stepped up to the plate to fire these guys when they don't do what they say they're going to do, and hopefully that has changed, and I appreciate you bringing that up. You also mentioned tax, Dave. Our tax system is severely broken. Back in 1998, I have a great relationship with Steve Forbes. He's been on this program many times, and I remember talking about the fair tax. I happen to be a fair tax or a flat tax guy. I don't believe in fixing the tax code. The only fix I believe this tax code can have is put in the trash and start over again. We can tweak it all we want. But the problem is there are an awful lot of lobbyists and an awful lot of people making millions of dollars off the complexities of the tax code. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned that you're for a fair and flat tax, and I appreciate that. But let me just ask you a question. What do you think? You've obviously learned a lot over the last couple of years about Congress, or you wouldn't be running. Do you think, in all honesty, that there's ever going to be a shot at fixing our tax system?
I agree with your logic. I mean, the fair tax has that, right? You can get rid of the IRS itself by going with that structure, and that would be great. And then you also ask the next relevant one is, what are the odds of getting that done? And this year was a good example. Representative Camp of Michigan put in a Reagan-esque tax bill that had lower rates, right? Only two rates, 25% and 10%. Got rid of a lot of the deductions, cleared up things, right? So it's not perfect, but it was moving in the Reagan direction and in the direction we're talking about. And the leadership of the Republican side said basically, nope, too risky for an election year, let's bypass it. Yeah. Right? And so you're right, the people have to speak up, and it's very hard. Right now, I'm at the end of a campaign with 30 days to go. Right. And what's Eric Cantor doing? He's blanketing Fox News every night, all the news channels, with negative ads on me, saying I'm a liberal professor who worked on some Council of Economic Advisors under my boss, the liberal governor, Tim Kaine, and raised your taxes and all this nonsense. All of it is just false, right? But he's got millions of dollars. I can't answer it. And so that is part of my logic for why we do need term limits. These incumbents have millions of dollars in war chests. And I've got the people. I've got the grassroots, and I think the vote is there to be had to win this election if we can get it out. But those millions of dollars make it very hard when they're blanketing Fox News and all those channels. I got to rely on my reputation and people who know me in the region to get the word out, and we're making that happen. Fact Check just came out and called it a bunch of rubbish as well yesterday, so we're getting some help from the higher-ups as well.
Well, I'll say this. A couple years ago in Richmond, I did a town hall meeting the week before Eric Cantor. He got about 200 people. I had about 1,000 people. We've got a lot of people. We've got a lot of people listening to this program, and I hope it helps you for people to really think about what is going on here and what we need to do in this short period of time. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit of a boost. I'm not, folks. I'm not allowed. Don't want. I'm not endorsing anybody. It's not more of an endorsement as it is. We need change, folks. You all know that. And one of the things that I say, Dave, to every politician I talk to, I say, here's the thing. I tell people that I can help any candidate win with this idea. The American people, and I do town hall meetings all over the country. I think I have my finger on the pulse of what conservative Americans want. And I get thousands of people come out. Let me tell you what the change has been in the last 3 years. And I had this a conversation with Tom Colburn. He's and he wasn't real appreciative of it. But I was saying that he was going on about something. I said, excuse me, Senator, I respectfully have to interrupt you here. But the problem is that the reason you're not doing this, and I know what you're about to say, is because you don't have the media on your side. He said, well, it's true, Dan. I said, well, I get that. But here's the problem. Republicans don't want to wage battle because they're too afraid of losing the war. See, if they can't win the war, they don't want to have a battle. And I always say, thank God that George Washington wasn't like that. Thank God he decided to cross the Delaware on that icy Christmas night, or we'd all have some nice British accent. It is amazing, and that is the problem. And people are ready for battle, not literally. They don't, but we need to take up arms, not literally, but we need to fight, and we don't have enough representatives that have the backbone that are willing to lose the battle for the sake of getting the issue out there. That's what's got to happen.
I agree with you. I think your logic's right on the money. I mean, basically, the Cantor and the Republican leadership let Obamacare go through for that reason, right? They didn't want to fight the fight. Right.
Absolutely.
And then on the amnesty, they're just buckling because they don't think we have the right message for the rest of the world. I teach third world economics, and how Republicans get cast as being less than generous. I don't get it. China's finally feeding its 1.2 billion people because of free market capitalism. Right. They're moving toward the freedom needle, and we're moving away from it. It's just unbelievable to me.
It is unbelievable. And I hope you get elected. I hope you can get in the fight. And I hope that nowhere in sight of you when you put your suit on in the morning is that white flag of surrender that I believe most Republicans quietly tuck away in their vest pocket to run it up the flagpole at any moment. And I hope that will never exist as part of your wardrobe, because that's exactly what we don't know.
You got that right. There's no white flags, and I encourage people to go out to my website. You'll see I'm running 100% on principle. There's no negative. You'll see every principle I've laid out. I'm running on those. I'm not running against Eric Cantor as a man. I'm running against his principles. And he is not following the Republican creed at all, which begins with a commitment to free markets, to the rule of law, to equal justice for everybody, for fiscal responsibility, for strong defense, etc. So go check me out at Dave Brat for Congress.com. Brat's just B-R-A-T, and you'll see I'm a man of principle my entire life.
Dave Brat for Congress.com. DaveBratForCongress.com. I hope everybody will check it out. We've got 30 days there in Virginia. And, Dave, I'm going to be praying for you. I'm going to be praying. I'm not against Eric Cantor, as you're not, but I am for the Constitution of the United States. I am for America. I'm for the American people. We need change, brother, and hope you can institute some change. Dave Brat for Congress.com. I hope everybody will check him out. If you're listening in Virginia, this is not a guy that's got the millions and millions and millions of dollars that Eric Cantor has. But he does need your feet to get to the voting booth and vote right. Dave, I want to thank you, brother. I appreciate you being on with us.
Hey, Dan, God bless you, and thanks for all you do, especially for our retired veterans, and thanks to your audience for all they do, too. God bless you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dave.